Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the World of Discovery. This is the webinar series hosted by Discovery Hospitality Corporation. We're back after 2 weeks. I'm Kathy Nepomuceno, and of course, my very amiable co-moderator. Thank you very much, Chris, for joining me again.
Hi, Kathy. Always glad to be here with you.
Yes, always happy to have you here. So just for everybody's information, this is our fourth webisode, and we decided to have a webinar series to gather key personalities across different fields to explore what we can expect in the ever-changing industry landscapes and see how we can adapt. As business across the globe adapt to today's new normal, we hope to see beyond challenges and press on towards new opportunities. Chris, you want to talk about the very interesting topic today?
Sure. Today's topic, sure, close to the hearts of, I think, more and more millennials and young people. The title is A Deep Dive into Marine Sustainability. And we have today experts with us, and I'm so excited to hear from them and their years of research and experience in the field. So the Philippines is a tourist favorite for its breathtaking islands and vibrant underwater life. In fact, Palawan has been awarded the best island in the world for 2020 by Travel and Leisure. No?
Yes.
But with all this rich natural beauty comes the mandate to make sure future generations can enjoy these marine resources. So today's fourth episode of World of Discovery brings together our experts in marine studies and conservation to talk about pressing threats to marine life and how travelers can be more responsible in underwater activities. Kathy, would you like to introduce our guest or our first guest?
Yes. So our first panelist is Dr. A. Yaptinchay. He has been involved in marine biodiversity conservation in the Philippines for over 25 years now. He is the director and founder of the conservation NGO Marine Wildlife Watch of the Philippines. He has a doctorate degree of veterinary medicine from the University of the Philippines and a master's degree of science in aquatic tropical ecology from Bremen University in Germany. He has worked with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources Biodiversity Management Bureau as a biologist and WWF Philippines as their Species Conservation Program Director. Wow, that's a lot. Good afternoon, Dr. A. Welcome
Good afternoon.
to the webinar.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone as well. Nice to see you all.
Yeah, nice to see you, Doc. Our second guest, our second expert is Professor Avigdor Abelson, first to be called AV for short, of Tel Aviv University, is a marine ecologist whose research interests are focused on marine ecosystems and the human impact on the marine environment. In recent years, much of his research interest has been directed to human-mediated marine species invasion, coral reef ecology, artificial reef design, ecological restoration of marine ecosystems, and ecological principles in IMTA, or Integrated Multi-Trophic Aquaculture Systems. So all the way from Tel Aviv, welcome, Professor. Thank you so much for being here and good morning.
My pleasure. Very happy to be with you.
Thank you, Professor. And our only lady in the panel, Dr. Lota Creencia. So she has a PhD in Fisheries Science and MS Fisheries Science from Kagoshima University in Japan and MS Biology from Silliman University in the Philippines. She was a Dean of the College of Fisheries and Aquatic Sciences of Western Philippines University for 10 years. Her specialization includes abalone biology and culture, marine biology, mangrove ecology and management, integrated seaweed farming, and community-based fisheries management and aquaculture. Good afternoon, Dr. Lota.
Good afternoon. Hi to all of you.
Good to have you here. Thank you
Thanks
for
so much.
joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm very
Okay,
glad.
our next expert is Ronald Simbajon, a marine biologist with over 20 years of professional and field experience in seaweed mariculture. He's the director of the Seaweed Industry Association of the Philippines. He has also been strongly engaged in the trading of dried seaweeds, having worked with Trax Seaweed Trading, where seaweeds are farmed in the clean and nutrient-rich waters in central Philippines. Welcome, Ronald.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And of course, last but not the least, our very own Colin Swerdfeger. So Colin has been an avid diver for 27 years and an instructor for 25. His education in both the hospitality and maritime industries led him to start managing ships in Reefs, where he fell in love in the area and stayed over 10 years longer than anticipated. He started with Discovery Fleet in 2015 as boat manager, eventually becoming the corporation's president. He has also worked as a consultant before in the city of Puerto Princesa as for their marine ecology program. Welcome, Colin.
Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me
Good
here.
afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Well, Kathy, we have so much brain power today and so much experience on the topic. I'm so excited.
Come up with a conversation, but
we will try our best. Yeah.
Yes, but as we mentioned earlier before we started, this is an advocacy that's very close to our heart in our company, because we have a lot of properties that are right in front of the sea, literally, and we have that sense of responsibility, right, to take care of our surroundings.
That's right.
So just to start with the warm-up question, so to speak, can everybody tell us about your current project or research focus on marine sustainability?
Yeah, maybe we start with AA and then let's go down the list as how we introduced each and everybody. Okay, Doc AA.
A, start with the letter A.
Yeah, start with the letter A.
So I have my hands on several things actually, but since the lockdown for the past 4 months, we've slowed down on a lot of our activities. So I do run an NGO called Marine Wildlife Watch of the Philippines, and we run our projects usually through that NGO. So I'm working right now on several things, some on research and some on policy. But one of the things we tend to focus on protected marine wildlife here in the country. So most are threatened and protected marine species that I would say need a lot of conservation attention compared to other species. And that's our focus. So we work a lot with marine mammals, dolphins, whales, dugongs. We work with sharks. I work a lot with turtles, marine turtles, or also like the pawikan. So I've been doing this for like 25 years. So I sort of have my hands on like a lot of things going on. But to talk about specific projects with the budget and activities and targets, we have a few going on. One, we're doing some research by monitoring landing sites for a special kind of guitar fish. It's called the white spotted wedgefish, which recently got protected in the Philippines because it was declared critically endangered by the IUCN. So they've been protected in the Philippines since October. So we're trying to gather some information on the fisheries that's going on in the Philippines. They're one of the most expensive in terms of the fins that's used in shark's fin soup in the world. So there's a high demand for that. So that's one of the things that we're doing. But we're also working on a national policy. Like this is at the national level, and we do support laws and try to provide technical inputs on a shark conservation bill. So we're pushing for a conservation program for all sharks and rays, and we have another group related to that called chimeras. And we think, or it is known that sharks and rays should be treated differently as than other fishery resources because they reproduce really very slow and they can
Mm.
recover if their populations are depleted. So we're working on a national policy which is a gap right now. We don't have one in the Philippines. That hopefully this will address the threats in the country.
Great.
So should I continue or is that enough time? But aside from that, we're also doing like with other groups I work with, like Baliana.org. We're constantly doing marine mammal research. For example, humpback whale surveys in the Babuyan Islands and in the Bohol Sea. They recently spotted, or 2 days ago, killer whales or orcas in the Bohol Sea.
Wow. Wow.
So that's very
Orcas.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're present in the Philippines. They've been confirmed for a long time now. But there was a
Really?
sighting like 2 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I also work with the DENR on marine turtle issues in the country, monitoring of stranding, nestings, etc. And aside from that, I'm also in the tourism industry, and I've worked with the Department of Tourism also in trying to put out some regulations and guidelines on an emerging tourism activity that's in the country right now, or it's
Mm.
increasing at the moment. And this has something to do with marine wildlife tourism, meaning dolphin
Mm.
watching, swimming with dugongs, interacting with turtles. I think the most popular one would be swimming with whale sharks. We have that in
Mm-hmm.
several sites. So apparently,
Mm-hmm.
there's no guidelines or regulations addressing that. So I've been working
Yeah.
with DOT for the past 5 years on
Fantastic.
such a guidelines
Fan-
and regulations. Hopefully that will pass really soon.
Great, great. It's good to hear that you're involved with policy as well and promoting tourism. I think there's so much potential there. You know, given that we have 7,000 plus islands, there must be a lot of marine related tourism which
Yeah.
we can still capitalize on to bring more tourists to the Philippines. And working with government and policy, it has to be definitely a top-down approach to address these conservation issues that we are facing.
But it's
So
always a
great.
mix
Yeah.
of top down and bottom up
Bottom up,
approach, I
yeah,
would
yeah,
say.
bottom up. I mean, yeah. So it's good that at least you're involved in different levels. So congratulations on that. Let's catch up more later. Now let's ask Professor Av from Israel. Prof. Av, what's keeping
Yeah.
you
Yep.
busy lately?
Well, first of all, I have to applaud AA. I think that the stuff he works on is crucial for the conservation of the marine life in the Philippines. So I'm very happy to hear his activities.
Mm.
I have several completely different projects in different places. Of course, in Israel, I have now a project in Mexico. We had a kind of preliminary project which we hope to continue in Indonesia and several other places, but my heart is in the Philippines actually, and most of my work and focus is in the Philippines. The different projects, the common denominator of all my projects is to answer the question how we can tackle problems that humans create which threaten the marine environment. And this is basically how to promote marine sustainability, of course. So I have projects that are related to sustainable aquaculture. That's how we met with Lota. And I have projects that are related to ecotourism. I will expand a little bit later if we have
Okay.
time. A project
Yes.
that is related to diving with the mantas, I mean, Manta Watch. We had a project in Ticao Island, and now we started something in El Nido area in Colin, what's the name of the place? I forgot. I'm getting old. Anyway.
Me too. The other side of El Nido.
Yeah, near El Nido, but
the other side.
Anyway. And then I have like the most important projects for me are related to conservation, marine protected area designation and planning, and restoration, which is my main expertise. The project, by the way, in Mexico is related to artificial reef, construction and use of artificial reefs for ecotourism, and also as a tool to restore marine ecosystems. I have a PhD student over there, a Mexican guy, very good scientist. And in the Philippines, I started a project together with Discovery, actually. We started something in Luzon, not far from Anilao, with a Chinese dive instructor that works with Discovery. In Israel, I have the IMTA project, which is, as Chris mentioned, integrated multi-trophic aquaculture. The idea is to culture several different species, starting from seaweeds all the way to clams, mussels, and fish, with the aim to minimize the impact on the environment. And my dream is to be able to promote the marine environment conservation in the Philippines, as I said, and that's why I keep on coming to the Philippines. And I'm not now in the Philippines because of the corona. This is the only reason I was supposed to be now in the Philippines.
I see. Fantastic. Wow, that's a lot of things.
You're a busy man, Prof.
Yes, and thank you for doing this for the country. No, thank you for sharing your expertise in trying to conserve our marine species. Okay, so Dr. Lota?
Yes, so I'll take off from what Avi started about culture. So basically, that's my main project now. Is we have this culture of shellfishes. So we have the abalone from hatchery to a small scale, now a small scale culture farming in coastal communities of Taytay, Palawan. And then that's in partnership with Malampaya Foundation Incorporated. We are also doing hatchery of top shell. It's not common. It's commercial because of its shell, but there are few now in our coastal areas, and also the Tridacna gigas, the true giant clam, in collaboration with Marine Science Institute of UP. They mentored us to do the hatchery. We do the in situ spawning. We collect the eggs and sperm from the wild and then bring it to the hatchery. So now we have more than a year-old giant clams for restocking in community managed areas of Malampaya Foundation. That's one of the thing we are doing. And also now I am involved in multi-country collaboration. We call it GCRF, or Global Challenges Research Fund Blue Communities Project. It's a UK funded project wherein we capacitate, or we do capacity building of communities through different projects. The ultimate goal is to produce or to help them produce a comprehensive sustainable marine plan. So we call it because we believe that the coastal communities should have sustainable interactions with the marine ecosystems, because the marine ecosystems that are well managed will be a better place for them to support their health, their well-being, also for food security and livelihoods of people. And I have an upcoming project funded by the Commission on Higher Education. It's an extension project wherein we will build educational material so that the fisher folks and aqua farmers will have entrepreneurial skills so that they can have their own, local markets of their goods. They have to be pulled in cooperatives or associations so that they can have better market leverage in the market of seafood. So in a way, I am involved in food production and management of the ecosystems and coastal communities.
Great. Fantastic.
Multifaceted indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Ronald, would you like to share a little bit on what's keeping you busy?
Oh, yes.
Oops.
Oh. Cannot
So Ronald, can't hear you.
See. Okay. How about now? Can you hear me?
Okay, there.
My life. It's at 100 arms in the now.
Quite
So,
Yeah, it's a bit choppy.
sorry. Okay. Is it choppy?
Yes, still cannot. We
Yeah.
cannot hear you. Okay, maybe Kathy, while we giving Sir Ronald a chance to fix his audio, no?
Yeah.
We can maybe proceed to our main questions first. I think we make Colin, if you don't mind, no, we will allow you to share what you're doing maybe in the next few questions that we're going to be asking. So because we have a lot of questions here and we don't have much time, so let's
Compared to everybody else, I'm not doing much, so please go ahead.
No, I think Kathy has already introduced you and shared a bit of what
Yes.
you're doing as the president of Discovery Fleet, and I'm sure you'll get to talk about some of your initiatives later on. So Kathy, would you like to shoot first question to
Yes.
about marine preservation?
I want to start with Dr. AA because he talked about his work with the Department of Tourism. What do you think are the current threats of tourism or maybe over tourism to the marine ecosystem? You can cite examples if you'd like.
Sorry. Okay. Hi. I think it happens at different levels. I think the main issue for me in terms of natural habitats and protected areas is the actual development, not only of infrastructure and not only of
Thank you.
buildings, for example, but also of roads. So one study I came across is the road development in the Philippines, especially in coastal areas, is a major contributor to the decline of coral reefs in areas. So just giving access to natural and beautiful isolated islands and spots in the Philippines is somehow already a threat. Okay, so that's one. And number two are the activities themselves. So for example, I've been working with regulations on interaction with marine wildlife. And when you do this, it has to be controlled. Like these activities are actually disturbing not only habitats, but the animals themselves. And somehow we need to control this, especially if animals are protected or threatened, because as I said, they need special conservation attention, for example. But I think higher than that, it's generally lack of awareness. If we just believe, for example, like the Philippines has the highest marine biodiversity in the world, and I think if we just take pride in having that, we're very special globally. And I think if every Filipino knows about that situation, we'll be more protective and we'll take more care of our environment and our marine resources.
Okay, thank you. Uh, taking off from what you said, no, we at the same time we want to preserve the beauty of our natural beauty, but at the same time we also sort of want to promote tourism. And you said that our main attraction is the natural beauty and then the diversity of our marine life. So how do we kind of strike a balance, with promoting tourism without, disrupting nature?
Well,
Anybody.
There's no easy
please, yeah.
solution for me, but that's what sustainability is all about. So, for example, the United Nations is promoting sustainable development goals of how we should conduct business, how we should develop as a nation or the world. And I think it's providing us the framework on how to strike that balance. And like one of my colleagues would say, sustainability is a journey. It's not a one solution that will fix everything. So everyone is somehow learning right now. And I think we just need to be mindful of laws, mindful of how the environment works, especially the science behind how our environment works. Everything should be science-based, I think. And we take it from there. We need policy, we need education, we need development to follow guidelines and move towards sustainability.
But yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
I guess the information has to be really be more spread out, right? Educating, especially the ones that are in tourism that involves water and touching the corals. I mean, I will direct this question to follow-up question to Colin, because diving is a big portion of our business. Fleet and even for Club Paradise, we do have dive packages. How do we? What are our best practices in terms of achieving this balance? That's what AA said.
Well, try to keep divers responsible, make sure they observe proper buoyancy, that they're well briefed on the ecosystem around them, and that they adhere to the good diving practices that will bring them without having contact into the reef. Good camera guys that don't bump into reefs, being aware of your surroundings. So a lot comes with the education and the briefings that we do before we let somebody go out and dive.
Colin, just to add to that, a while ago, Dr. AA mentioned about probably over too much traffic, human traffic, which could impact negatively on the presence of certain marine species. I believe you had some recent spottings of dugongs during this lockdown. Maybe you would like to talk about how maybe the lack of movement of humans have resulted in this.
Yeah, one of the benefits of the COVID, I guess, and the lockdown is that we don't have the human traffic going on at the resort. We don't have the boat traffic. We don't have people in the water as much, mostly probably the boat traffic. And starting at the beginning of the lockdown, we've had dugongs showing up quite regularly, almost every day. And we've recorded five different animals that we can identify. So since this has happened, now we're coming up with ways that we can preserve this area to keep the noise down, keep boat traffic out, come up with guidelines if the dugong are feeding in the area, that we can control the amount of people that are around. They're a very shy animal with poor eyesight, and they get spooked very easily. So we're working up guidelines and a plan so we can keep them having a healthy environment where the dugong can keep showing up at Club Paradise.
Yeah.
Maybe just to add to that, I'd like to mention to Colin that the DOT is actually, they have the written guidelines already.
Yes.
It just hasn't been approved.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for that to happen. So maybe that's a good start of point or basis for any regulations you're going to do in the
Yeah,
resort, because that's going to
we'll-
be a national level regulation.
Excellent. We'll look forward to that. That's something that's needed because it seems like the different areas that I've looked at, everybody sort of has their own set of regulations. Although they're mostly similar, there's not a standard set that we should have in the Philippines.
Yeah, so definitely the DOT regulations will be a standard for the whole country.
That's good news. That's good
That's
news.
great. So Colin, dugong sightings is actually something that's very appealing to tourists, no? Divers or snorkelers. What are your thoughts on allowing, let's say, guests to swim within the vicinity of the dugongs? Do you think we should allow it or not at all, or should there be some sort of guidelines in doing so?
Well, I think we could do it safely without harassing or harming the animal. There's been dugong watching's been established in the Calawit area, which is very close. And as long as people adhere to what the information that we have out there about where to be, how close to you can be, what your behavior is, I think we can do it without causing too much impact on the animal. But it takes a lot of care. It takes a lot of education for the people that you're taking out. But I think we can handle it safely and wisely. Just a matter of getting knowledge out to our guests when they come there and want to view it.
Okay, good. And hopefully your efforts of improving the water effluent qualities in the area would improve the food supply, and maybe more dugongs would come, or the existing dugongs would be seen there more often. So how's that coming along? Is it you think that will significantly improve the seagrass in the area?
The seagrass has been doing okay. Our divers there have been doing some transplanting and sheltering it a little bit so we can keep patches growing all the time. But algae levels seem to be a little down, so the seagrass is doing okay. And the dugongs seem to be there quite frequently, so I guess it's been good for them. So hopefully we can keep it up and the grass will stay there. It is a relatively small patch, but I think it's doing okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Mr. Ronald. Ronald,
Yes.
AV.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I have my hands on the development of seaweeds, and at present I'm into the utilization of green seaweed. It is also sometimes called as the green tide. This is the particular seaweed that is being washed ashore on the islands of Boracay. So it is a very good source of protein for animal feed. That's one. Yeah, and I'm also involved into the development of seaweed farms for carrageenan. It's an ingredient for food.
Oh.
So I tried to get my hands on the development, introducing it in other parts of the country, like in Aurora province. Well, I had a chance to introduce it in Coron. And because seaweed is a fast-growing plant, it grows more than double its size in just 30 days. So it attracts other marine lives. It becomes a habitat. So in effect, it increases the sustainability, the productivity of the surrounding environment.
Is it a growing industry around the world, Sir Ronald?
I'm sorry.
Is it a growing industry?
Yes, because there's a huge demand for seaweed. Utilization of seaweed byproducts or natural components for ingredient food. So seaweed products. For example, about our requirements or lower than that is imported from Indonesia. We have a huge coastal areas that's supposed to be seaweeds. It's an ideal. One of my advocacies is to seaweed farms in the Philippines. Yes.
instead of importing, right? We should just be able to propagate our own.
That's right. Because we have a very huge potential areas for farming, and yet we're still importing seaweeds from Indonesia.
Exactly.
So do you think it's a lack of support from other agencies or other sectors, or do you think it's just a lack of education and information for people to get into it?
And the lack of information for the it.
Sorry, Sir Ronald. I think nagiging choppy kayo ulit.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. The government should actively participate and introduce seaweed farming to other coastal countries, and the corporate world should also get involved, because the companies that are producing or processing seaweeds are the companies that require.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
It's a cooperation really from different entities.
Yeah, from also public and the private sectors. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think Mr. Ronald talking now. Like, we cannot hear you, Sir Ronald. But sige, we'll get back to you later. We'll talk more about seaweeds. Let's move on to ocean pollution. This is for Prof. AV.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to address this question. Prof, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Compared to 5 and 10 years ago, by how much do you think has ocean pollution increased, and how much do you think this increase is due to the impact of tourism?
Well, let me start by saying that although we have to emphasize the impact of tourism, the impact of tourism relative to other sectors is negligible, to my opinion. Okay. And I think that in many cases, not only that the tourism doesn't harm or harm less than other sectors, in many cases, you can see circumstances where the tourism helped the marine environment. For instance, house reefs of different resorts.
Correct.
For instance, Club Paradise north to Botswana, where the people of the dive center of the Club Paradise, they are protecting the marine environment.
Yes.
And if there wasn't the resort over there, for sure the overfishing there would have sweep out all the marine creatures, or most of them, as I see in many other places in the Philippines and other countries along the coastal tropical oceans. So I think that when we talk about the impact, and this is also to relate to what AA said, I think that in many cases, the tourism can be of help. Of course, we have to control the level of tourism to avoid over use of certain places, to have the different rules that AA and Colin were talking about. But I think that if we do it in the appropriate way, I truly believe that tourism and marine tourism can be the least problem of our marine environment. Now, referring to pollution, there are several different pollution sources. The most famous is, of course, the plastic and the outcome of plastic, which is microplastic particles that we can find everywhere in the air and the ocean. But much less famous in terms of impact on the marine environment is the pollution coming from sewage. And in most places in the world, there is no treatment, and sewage goes either directly to the sea or through rivers and groundwater. And this is a huge problem that still hasn't been solved in most places. Another pollution source that is not well treated is the pollution coming from agricultural fields, agricultural farms, and I'm talking about over-fertilization, all the fertilizers that end up in the sea. They are a huge problem for the marine environment. And then lots of pesticides that end up in the sea. So there is a lot of work to be done in order to minimize or at least to reduce the amount of pollutant that affect the marine environment. To my opinion, in most places, these problems haven't been solved yet. And the impact of tourism in this regard of pollution is, of course, from resorts and various activities that don't take care of the excess materials that
I see.
they release to the environment.
I see. Very interesting insight. So it's agricultural waste and other sources of waste that are actually impacting more, even oil spills, for example. Like there's one that happened recently. But so it looks like there's really a collaborative effort from all sectors, that is needed in order to address this problem. In terms of setting regulation and enforcement, do you think the Philippines is doing enough, or do you think where do you think we can help in order to protect our marine species?
I think that the Philippine government doesn't do enough in terms of overfishing, doesn't do enough in terms of destructive fishing, and I'm talking mainly about cyanide fishing that is widespread all over the country, and in several places still dynamite fishing or blast fishing. And as I mentioned, also the pollution sources. So the government doesn't do enough. And I truly believe that the tourism sector, through the different corporates of tourism, can help a lot. First, on a local scale in places where there are resorts and dive centers, and then on a national scale by exerting some pressure on the governmental or like the national governmental units and departments to push them in order to be more effective in rules, and not only rules, also enforcement, because there are over 1,700 marine protected areas in the Philippines. Most of them are not enforced. Most of them are not complied. So I think that the tourism industry in the Philippines, in the country, can help a lot in changing the situation.
So just to add to that, Prof, the dynamite fishing and, let's say, trolling and irresponsible modes of fishing, are they being done, would you say, by just the big companies, or would you say there are also some smaller independent fisher folks who practice these things?
Both. The big companies now, in many cases, they go further away from the coastline. But lots of what is called artisanal fishing, like small fishers, in many cases, they get cyanide, and They just use it in many places, in numerous places. These small fishermen use this tool that help them to get more fish. I saw it in many places in the Philippines. To my opinion, this is something that is not enforced enough. Unfortunately, not forced enough because not enough budget for enough rangers and all these bodies that can do some control and enforcement of fishing activities. And in most cases, no attention is paid at all to the pollution, the sewage and the pollution coming from agricultural areas. So,
Wow. Yeah, definitely a big problem and a tough one to solve with the vast seas.
Far more than the tourism.
Yeah.
Dr. Lota, would you like to comment on that? Because you're into fisheries.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Professor Av's inputs?
Yeah, I think I agree in most, and that's why we try to work from the bottom. We work in the communities. We help them do their own plans. They have to see what's in their areas. We are telling them that you have these resources. What do you want to do with it, and how do you want to manage? So things like those. So we provide them science-based data. We do with our international partners. We do models, different models based on fish population, based on ecosystem services, based on satellite images, and so on. So those things we want to give them to be able to do their own plans, so that what Avi is talking about, managing the resources, because most of our coastal people now, they should have the thinking of they have these municipal waters, so they thought of owning it. That's why they would apprehend those that are coming from other places, especially if you're in Palawan, for example. They would know who are those that are not from there, so that they would do some watch dogs, what area. So that's very important. That's why capacitating the communities is one big challenge, and that's not easy. That will take a long time and so much helping them, because they don't have much how do you say it? In terms of education. Usually they have they are not very, they did not
well informed about the subject.
They are also the poorest sector in our society, the fishers, the coastal people. And also in terms of education, they have the lowest, they have low educational qualifications and training. So that's really a big challenge on our part, plus the poverty. And with this pandemic, it's really, something.
So it's good that
a bit more.
Yeah, definitely poverty is another
Can I
factor.
just add one comment?
Yeah, please.
I absolutely agree with Lota. I think that bridging gaps of knowledge by education and work with the local communities, like what has been termed here bottom up, is crucial. But one crucial point that we should remember, and I didn't mention, is that they have to survive. So I don't blame the fishermen. If I was a fisherman that has to feed his kids, I would do anything in order to feed my kids. And I think that the main challenge is to provide them with alternative livelihood. And because awareness is not enough, you cannot buy food with awareness. And in order to shift them from overfishing and destructive fishing, we have to provide them with alternative livelihood. And I think that seaweed culture is one
right.
excellent example of alternative livelihood that doesn't harm the environment. The same is with the shellfish aquaculture that Lota mentioned. So, and then of course, to recruit fishermen to the tourism industry, and to recruit fishermen to restoration projects. And there are several different directions where we can provide fishermen with alternative livelihood. This requires some effort from the government,
Correct.
and also
Absolutely.
like philanthropes that care about the environment, care about the poor communities, and willing to give funds in order to create this, initiate this shift.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. Yeah, I think alternative sources of livelihood and income is so important. But again, where do you get the financial aid in doing so? Fishermen are a little bit apprehensive to invest X amount to put up their own maybe a farm, fish farm, or seaweed farm with uncertain results or income. No, whereas when they fish today, they're sure they can bring home something and feed their family or sell it to the market. Now, with that, Ronald, maybe you can talk a little bit
Yes.
about opportunities on seaweed farming. Would it and is it a viable alternate source of income for fishermen, for example?
Yes. I noted that it was mentioned that there was an illegal fishing, a plastic fishing that the past. So in poor coastal communities, when there is no enough livelihood, fishermen tend to get to blast fishing or any forms of illegal fishing. We're trying to introduce other.
Sorry, Ronald, you're choppy again. Is it just me or is it
No.
choppy?
Yeah, he's
He's really choppy, no? Mahina yata signal dyan.
I'm sorry, poor. I really have a problem of the internet connection.
There, we can hear you now.
Or maybe Ronald can type his message to one of our admins here, Hannah or
Yeah.
Blessy here, and then maybe they could.
I'm sorry.
Share that.
Yeah, I'm really sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Hannah, are you there?
I'm still
Maybe
here.
Sir Ronald, you could just maybe type a short comment about your thoughts on opportunities for seaweed farming. You know how much of an investment is it? How much of a risk or how lucrative it is? Just a little bit on that. So while you're doing that, we still have a few minutes, no, Kathy?
Yes. We will have to extend a little bit because it's a very
sayang. I'm interested to hear Ronald's response on seaweed farming. I mean, with the vast coastal areas that we have here, there's so much opportunity there, and like what was mentioned earlier, it still hasn't been fully maximized
and utilized. Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to share my thoughts on it, but I'm sorry.
There.
Putol siya.
I think you can, there you can actually share your thoughts in the chat box, and then we can read it out. Sir Ronald.
Yes, I believe Colin, Discovery also has some initiatives on seaweed farming. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yes, at Club Paradise, actually, Ronald helped us set up a seaweed farm there.
Right.
over a year ago, and we've been using it for our restaurant. At the resort, we have crab farm, we have our own vegetable farm, plus we have a seaweed farm to help sustain our restaurant. So we've been using the seaweed for that, and we're planning on expanding it at some point and looking into get into other areas with the seaweed, perhaps making soap or shampoos, things of that nature that we could utilize. Many different uses for seaweed, and you could use them in the resort, and it helps cut down on your buying and packaging of plastics and things. So it'll help the environment in that way, that you're employing some people to take care of your seaweed farms and the endless possibilities of things that you can make with it. And in the long run, it helps with buying things that come in plastic, and you can package even using the seaweed. So we've been working on that, and we have a vision to take that farther.
Great. And I think even some of the organic waste from the food and the resort is used as a compost fertilizer for the farm. That's used
correct.
to grow the various vegetables. I think there's talong, tomatoes, if I'm not mistaken, and like you said, crabs as well. That's grown and eventually offered to the guests of the resort. So that way, we know how the produce is grown organically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk about coral replanting. I'd like to bring this up because I know our company Discovery aids a lot in the rehabilitation of damaged corals and coral farming. In fact, Professor Aviv was involved in the island in Yaptinchay, right, Colin? And
Hawaiian Islands.
Bowayan.
Yeah,
Bowayan in San Vicente.
Yeah. That's right, in San Vicente. What's your opinion on this? Maybe AA or Professor Aviv can comment on this initiative in marine sustainability in the area of coral replanting. AA?
Okay. I think it's one of the approaches we can use in conserving coral reefs in the Philippines, but definitely it's not the only way.
Yeah.
There are really big threats out there, including climate change, warming of our seas, sea level rise, migration of marine species away from the equator. So in appropriate places where reef rehabilitation can benefit from coral gardening, I think it's appropriate, but there are other solutions out there, I would say, like marine protected areas. Like leaving coral reefs alone is sometimes good enough for them to recover if the reef is healthy enough.
I see.
So that's why I stand on it.
I think in terms of tourism, the divers really need this. Yeah. So in terms of diving, I'm sure there's a lot of areas that we can see that have no color anymore, right, Colin? And I think that's the reason why we try to contribute by doing what we can as far as our capacity.
Yes, and I think it's also very costly to have to maintain and plant your own coral reefs, and when they're grown, you have all these threats like AA mentioned with the temperatures that could possibly cause bleaching and even maybe irresponsible fishermen who may come and harm it for the sake of profit. So that's definitely a challenge there in trying
and just to butt in, there are also irresponsible divers and tourists out there that we need to control.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure you're a diver yourself, right? So
Yes.
I'm sure we do witness some irresponsibility there, but mainly because of lack of information. I think it's really more that, right?
Yeah, so I think like resorts as frontliners have the role of making sure that all their guests and divers are well informed and they follow the regulations and they're guided properly when doing a dive.
That's right.
Mm, yeah. So
And good
definitely,
training.
yep.
And good training. They should be trained well.
Yeah.
Most of the damage comes with the new divers and not getting great training. Once they've come a little farther in their diving careers, they become better and more aware of what they're doing in the water. So training is really important when it comes to diving.
Mm. So diving is also a way of educating the public on marine preservation, no? Because
Absolutely.
for non-divers like myself, I'm not aware of what's down there and all these things that you're talking about. So I guess while you're promoting tourism through diving, at the same time we're also promoting marine preservation.
That's right.
It's integrated with most of the teaching, and if you have good instructors, they're passionate about the underwater environment. They love being in the water. So when they teach people how to dive, they also give them a lesson on the environment and how to keep it safe from us.
That's right.
Nice.
Colin, do you want to share a few things about our favorite topic sometimes, which is the crown of thorns? A lot of efforts on this, right, Chris? We always talk about this.
It's a headache.
It's something that's very prevalent in the Philippines right now, and I know many different areas of the Philippines are taking steps to eradicate the problem of the crown of thorns. Even we've had our small case of it over at Club Paradise, but we've been on top of it very quickly. But it's something that is part of the the environment with what Avi mentioned on earlier with the pollutants coming in. They're also contributing to these spawns of crown of thorns that are happening right now, and they will continue to happen until we work better on the water quality of the pollutants going in it, and the overfishing as well, because we've taken out some of the natural predators from the crown of thorns. So it's a whole rounded thing in the environment that we need to look after many different things. Otherwise, we're going to see these blooms of whether it's crown of thorns or jellyfish or many different things. So it's something that is an ongoing process in the Philippines to eradicate the crown of thorns right now.
Yeah.
It's
that
part of life, basically.
the circle of marine life.
Yeah.
Circle of marine life, but I think can be prevented, no, Colin? It requires a lot, again, collaboration with other stakeholders, including like what Prof. Avi mentioned, agriculture waste and all other waste that could be possible contributors to these crown of thorns. But also, Colin, maybe talk about how some of your volunteer divers have expressed the support in removing or in so-called eradicating this, at least in the area.
We've been very lucky at Club Paradise with Nori and myself and Joe Jill, manager of the resort. We've been able to get volunteers to come in when we've seen heavy blooms and help either inject or remove the crown of thorns. So the public support for helping out in those kind of projects has been very nice. It's been very supportive, and we look forward to trying to do more of these kind of environmental projects with the general public and our businesses.
Great. Okay. So, Kathy, you still have time? Oh, wait, did Kathy disappear?
Yes, we have a few minutes. Yeah, I'm here.
How is Ronald's audio? Or has Ronald sent his his reply to Hannah. I cannot, because I'm using my phone, I can't read the chats. Maybe Cassie, you have access to the chat?
No, he actually didn't send.
I'm about to send it.
Sir Ronald?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Ayan.
Okay. We'll wait for
Ayan.
there.
Yeah, I
Ayan.
just sent it.
Ito, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Kathy or me?
Any, up to you.
Okay, so here's the reply of Ronald. Seaweed farming has in fact become a main source of livelihood in several coastal communities in the country. For example, in the province of Tawi-Tawi, again, seaweed is a fast-growing plant and it can be harvested in 45 days. It does need a huge capital outlay to start a seaweed farm. A farmer can start few lines and expand utilizing the seaweed produce for expansion. There would be no additional inputs on the course of the culture. The farmer just has to visit the farm for broken lines and loose plants and fix them. Seaweed biomass also attracts other marine species, thereby increasing the productivity of the surrounding environment. Actually, it's not a huge capital outlay, rather it does not require a huge capital outlay. Yeah, I was wondering. Yeah, it does not. So again, a possible alternate source of income for people who live in the coastal areas or fishermen, to look into. It requires doesn't require a lot of inputs, just a lot of passion, I suppose.
That's right.
Okay. So great. Thank you for sharing that, Ronald.
Dr.
Thank you.
Ronald, would you like to add something to Ronald's inputs?
Yeah, actually, I agree with Ronald because in Palawan, we are, I think, the second largest producer in the Philippines. There are many seaweed farmers, and it is one of the largest employer, giving livelihood to many coastal communities. And in our projects, we are trying to integrate other culture system like the shellfish abalone. We are doing small cages and suspending it on the main lines of the seaweed so that they can have additional source of income. At the same time, some seaweed that will grow on the lines can be used as feed for the abalone because abalone are
Wow.
And also, Colin said about other products. The communities growing seaweed can produce products, especially now that we are should grow local. So that the seaweed we are producing in the local, we can produce like food products, simple food products, like pickles, gelatin, and so other like pastries. So the communities can have additional food or additional income Avi was talking about. And because it's a friendly farming system, it should also do away with the cyanide Avi was talking about, because if there's any cyanide in the area, the seaweed will be, it will not, it will be destroyed, it will be, it will die, including the others. So at the same time, they are protecting the environment. They are, feeling responsible for their ecosystem, for their environment, for the food that they will produce for themselves, because Colin is talking about organic food and the food that they will produce for the other people that will be using food. So seaweed is really very good. It's really
Wow. It's good to hear. Yeah, very, very interesting, and it seems like there's a lot of benefits to seaweed, and still a lot of opportunity. It looks like it here in the Philippines. So definitely needs support from the public and private stakeholders, to promote this into to something bigger and to a bigger industry here, because just the benefits that you all talked about is just overwhelming, and can certainly help in your advocacy of marine preservation. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Nice.
a lot of when you talk about sustainable tourism, marine sustainability is just one huge topic that we can go on and on about, right? As what everybody says, I think message is really it's an ongoing process that different sectors really have to work together. And since Dr. AA is working with the Department of Tourism, we look forward to hearing more of that and all these legislations. I hope it really pushes through. We can all cooperate because I think a lot of the resort owners are as what Professor mentioned earlier. We're quite active when it comes to making sure that we are kind to the environment.
Yes.
And the Philippines doesn't win awards for nothing, right? So it is worth all the effort. These esteemed guests that we have here, right, Chris?
Yes, definitely. And I think the Secretary of Tourism has been very supportive of the initiatives of the industry, and also at the same time in the midst of this COVID lockdown, also finding creative ways to get the industry started again. It's yeah. So you talked about yes. No, we talked about all the challenges of marine sustainability. Definitely requires a lot of effort from different stakeholders and resources as well. And like what AA said, we have to work with government and policymakers also. So with that, I just like to thank everybody here for everything that you're doing for our country, for our seas, for our marine animals, and for sharing with us your passion. I mean, we can really feel it today. Just the way you talk about it. It's very inspiring. It's not going to be an overnight fix. It will take years and maybe generations. With a lot of education and a lot of alternate means of livelihood, maybe that would avoid people from destroying the marine habitats and disturbing the marine life. So with that, Kathy, would you like to end our session, or would you?
Yes, well, we can ask one last question for everybody.
Okay.
Yes. Maybe as your closing remark, what are some reminders that you'd like to leave the travelers when it comes to being mindful about their impact on underwater life?
Let's start with AA, maybe. I'll read out Ronald's final message later on.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'll stick with awareness, and sometimes before you visit a place, it would be good for the visitors, the tourists, the travelers to research more about the place, especially if it's a natural area, or for scuba divers, know about the species that are found there. And when you get there, actually be mindful of how your activities are affecting all these the environment and all the species in the area. And I think that's just a starting point. Hopefully the resorts and the operators in the area will help you also realize your impacts and try to control that. So
yeah, great. And I think with social media, people are more sensitive nowadays and more aware, I would say. Plus, I think with the social with the effect of how other people are talking about preservation of the environment and marine life, I think the younger generation at least are more now more and more informed and concerned. So I think that's something positive. And yeah, something to look forward to in the in the years to come. Thank you, Dr. AA. Who would like to speak next? Maybe AV?
I will follow what AA has started. I absolutely agree that a key point is to build awareness by education. And I think that many of the marine tourists are eager to learn about the marine environment. I believe that beyond building awareness, another direction that can help, not only from the potential impact of the tourists, but also from the local community perspective, I believe that activities that try to bring together the tourists and the local communities, like to take tourists in between dives to visit fishermen villages, to talk with them, to interact with them, maybe to have a meal over there, like not all the meals, of course, but once a week during all their activities, to visit a fisherman village and to join them and to have like lunch together or things like that. I believe that it's something that can create more involvement of the tourists and more care about the specific environment, and also the human beings that are that rely on this environment.
Thank you, AV. Dr. Lota?
Yes, I have 3 R's for my take-home message. The first R is responsible activities. So the resort operators or the tourist operators and the travelers should think that there will be no damage and no waste during during the activities. And there should be, the second R is respect for life underwater, so that they won't hurt the creatures, because all creatures are precious, And the third R is record, so they can record the beauty of the underwater, so that they can let others to see what they have experienced in that beautiful underwater life. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lota. Okay, Kathy, I'll read out Ronald's message.
Sure.
Okay, so they should be conscious and mindful of the environment and its activities and its impact to the environment. So they should just enjoy the natural beauty of the marine lives by observing them. Okay, thank you, Ronald. Where am I? Okay. Colin, anything?
I think everybody said it very well. Education and knowledge and respect for all environment, whether it's on land or in the water. We've got only one planet, and we have to look after it so the next generations can enjoy it. So we have to show respect, whatever we do, whatever our activity is. Respect the environment, because this is the only chance we have to keep it the way it is or make it better.
Great. Thank you, Colin. Okay. I think this was a very inspiring session we had today, Kathy. Definitely. Right. Thank you to all our experts for sharing with us your knowledge and about the subject, and also for sharing us your passion for saving the only planet that we have. I think this passion is very infectious. No, we have viewers who are like-minded and also feel the same way, and who would like to take part in one way or another in conserving and preserving our marine life and our marine environment. So we really appreciate you being here and taking the time to talk about your initiatives.
Yes, thank you very much to our dear panelists. Thank you for spending the time. I believe we have quite a number of questions. We will answer to the ones who are listening in privately. So if anyone who's listening in or watching would like to do a one-on-one consultation, you can see more details on Discovery Hospitality Corporation through the link we have provided in the Facebook page. Again, thank you to everybody, Dr. Lota, Dr. AA, Professor Avi, Sir Ronald, and of course, our dear Colin. Thank you very much for participating in a very educational session. And well, you all know that we will continue to work with you guys to maintain our advocacies also in Discovery Hospitality and in all our properties and resorts.
And thank you also to all our viewers,
Yes.
Kathy. Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yes,
And I'm sure, I hope you guys learned a lot and are, inspired like I am to do something positively that will contribute to the betterment of our marine life and to the marine world. Again, don't forget to follow or to like this us on our Facebook page. That's at Discovery Hospitality Corp. And to follow Discovery Hospitality on Instagram at Discovery_Hospitality.
Yes.
Kathy?
And we will have another episode in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, we do?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, Chris.
I
thank
thought
you
this was the
very
last.
much. Yes. And again, thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.
Have a great day, the rest of the day. And we'll
Yeah.
see you again in 2
Yeah.
weeks' time.
And more power to all your initiatives and advocacies, guys. Thank you for what you're doing.
Yes,
Thank
that's right.
Okay.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.